I am not doing any disclaimers for this video. You knew what it was when you clicked on it. Today I'm going to be doing my most disappointed reads in 2020. So before I get into the video, this book is sponsored by Book of the Month. Now y'all know that I love working with Book of the Month. Book of the Month is one of my favorite services. Book of the Month is a super popular, fast-going online book service. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors, to help readers discover books that they love. Their team has vast hundreds of books each month and gives reader their choice of new curated selections and early release titles, so you can spend more time reading and less time doing research. Book of the Month is risk-free. You can skip any month, anytime, and you will not be charged. They have the best prices for a new release hardcover, and you can get your first book for $9.99 using the code NEWBOOKS. I'll leave a link to the website and the code in the description. So now let's get into the January book picks. We're just gonna start off with the book that I am most excited for. I cannot help myself, and that is The Dating Plan by Sarah Desley. Look how beautiful this cover is. So this is a romance, an early release, because sometimes with Book of the Month they will release a book that come out later. This one says, can two people become fake engaged, finally please their family, and feel fulfilled without falling in love? I love fake dating, like you guys know, so I'm just so excited for this one. Next book is The Prophets. This is a literary fiction, and it is an endangered love between two enslaved men at the heart of this expansive, devastating, and lyrical debut. The next book is The Removed. This is also an early release, and this book is a contemporary fiction and is resonant, lyrical, otherworldly, a genre-bending look at tragedies and legacies that impact one Cherokee family. This book is historical fiction and it's called Outlaw, and also this cover is like one of my favorite covers like ever. Like, I don't know what it is about this cover that I am just like literally obsessed with. I think it's the colors, but I am literally obsessed. And this is, it says, giddy up, this feminist spin on Western stars a gang of lovable outcasts who rob and plot and search for a better life. And I definitely will be reading this book because it just sounds so interesting. And then the last book, which is also an early release, 3 early releases in 1 month. Okay, and it's The Survivor, and this is a mystery. It says, home sweet home, well, not exactly. This eerie seaside town is burdened by secrets, storms, and unsolved murder, which I'm also intrigued by this because seaside, I'm already intrigued. These are the Book of the Month book picks, and I cannot wait to get into this one. And once again, I'll leave the link to Book of the Month and the code in the description box. On to the rest of the video. I'm too lazy to get the books, so editing me will have to edit in all of these pictures for the book covers, and I'm probably mentally trying to fight myself right now, but filming me feels pretty good about it because I don't have to deal with it until the future. I'm going to be doing my worst books of 2020. Start off the video, one of my worst books of 2020 was Addie LaRue. So The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, if you don't know what this book is, it is about Addie LaRue, who makes a deal with the devil. He's only referred to as the darkness. She makes a deal with the darkness to live forever because she doesn't want to live her mundane life of being a housewife and marrying a man, which I can't blame her. She makes a deal with the devil to live forever, and the deal comes with consequence of everyone forgetting about her until she meets this one guy who actually doesn't forget about her. The romance in the book just wasn't good. I just don't think that V. Schwab is good at writing romance, and I know that this was like her baby. Like, she worked on this book for like 7 years or something like that, but I think she should have worked on it a little bit longer because the romance was shit. It also was advertised as the Addie LaRue falling in love with the devil, and that's not what we got. Stresses me out because I really thought that I was gonna get like this romance, and I should have known. Also, Addie LaRue was very much not like other boys. Addie LaRue was very much not like other girls, which V.E. Schwab tends to write in her books. Like, I get that this book was written over 7 years, but you can kind of tell because other than the writing, V. Schwab hasn't grown as an author. I never thought V. Schwab was good at writing romance, and all of her characters, all of her female characters are exactly the same. Now, Addie LaRue is a lot less not like other girls than V. Schwab's other characters, but not by much. The next book I have is The Invisible Girl. It's actually in my unhaul pile back here, but I don't feel like getting it. Literally so lazy for no reason. It was a thriller. I think it's a British thriller because it's about this girl who like goes missing essentially. It follows different perspectives. It's a girl basically lives this terrible life and then she ends up disappearing. The book was just weird and useless. All you had to do in the beginning was just call the police. Literally one phone call to the police would have solved all of their issues. They have this whole character that's like a suspect of who did it and you get it from their point of view. And I remember on Goodreads somebody was like, oh, he's such a like great character, and I'm like, he also was suspended for his job for accusing of sexually harassing women, and instead of just being a normal fucking person and trying to show that you're not that kind of guy, he goes on to a Reddit site and tries to buy date rape drugs. I thought he was still a weirdo. I feel like his point of view was just so the author could get more pages in. This whole book was useless. The ending, like once you read the ending, it was just so useless and it made me so mad. The next book is No Offense by Meg Cabot, and this is a romance book. It is about, it was a romance book. It's about, they live on like Staten Island. They live in New York, but I'm pretty sure they live on Staten Island. And she moves there and she's a librarian and she meets this guy who's a police officer. There's like this mystery of this baby that's being born in this library, and he comes to like work on the case, and then they meet and they get off on the bad foot. And I just hated the romance because I felt like the guy was a bit misogynistic, and it's not enough. You don't know how like you read something sometimes and you're like, this character is giving me these vibes, and it's not enough proof that they are that way, but you still get those vibes. He gave me very misogynistic vibes, the way that he treated the main female character, and then like the way that they fell in love. Like, I understand why she fell in love with him because they were at this charity dance and she's seen that like he was a good guy, but why he fell in love with her like literally doesn't make any sense. Like, he just seen her being beautiful and just like, oh, I'm in love. I just hated the book. And then The Year of the Witching, that's in my unhaul pile. These are my unhaul piles, except for this one, except for these over here, and like some of these books down here. You guys didn't ask, but like the books from here lower, but the rest of these are unhauls. But The Year of the Witching, I just didn't think that it was anything fun about the book. The book is basically about this girl and she lives like this, think Salem before the Salem witch trials. Basically, she goes into the woods and she discovers her mom's diary, and she discovers that she's a really powerful witch with like dark magic, and it just follows that. I just thought it was boring. Like, I didn't care. Maybe I need to give it a reread. I just didn't care. I listened to it on audiobook, so maybe it could have been better physically. The cover is one of my favorite covers, but thinking about the books, I just did not care. Didn't care about any of the characters. I did not care about the romance, and I didn't care about the plot. And it's not that I didn't have it, I just didn't care. And I wanted to love The Year of the Witching because it's written by a black author, so it really sucks that I didn't care about it, but I did. And then the next book is A Discovery of Witches, which I read this book because ever since like the dawn of booktube, like ever since I discovered booktube in 2015, A Discovery of Witches was like being talked about. Like, everybody talked about it. My favorite like YouTubers will always talk about it, and so I finally gave it a read because I was reading a bunch of like spooky books for Halloween. I read this book at work. I had to listen to it on 2 shifts because it was like 24 hours long, an audiobook. I just did not like it. It was about this girl and she works at Oxford and she's in a library one day and she discovers this book that basically informs you all the information about witches, vampires, and demons that exist in their town. So it tells you like everything about them, and then the next day she returns it and everyone is looking for her because they want to know where it is and how she found it, because everyone wants to be informed on why they are the way that they are, and like they just want to know more about themselves. I thought it was boring because I did not like the love interest. First of all, I didn't care about the main character. I thought that she was stupid. How do you go to Oxford and you're this dumb? If you discovered this book and you knew nothing about it and you've never seen it before and she's always in this library, why would you give it back? And even her aunts told her, like, we always taught you that if you don't know what something is, don't give up on it until you know what it is. And what does she do? She returns it. Like, are you dumb? Yeah, she is. And then the love interest, I just was very bored about the love. Like, it was giving me enemies to lovers at first. Y'all know I eat anything up that's enemies to lovers, and they end up falling in love super fast. So I usually don't mind insta love. Like, I always say that I hate insta love, but I think that insta love can be done right. So I usually don't mind it, but when it goes from like enemies to lovers to insta love is when I'm mad. And like I didn't care about the couple. I wanted more slow burn, but the book was like 8,000 pages. It was only like 500, but still. The book was like super huge, so like I understand them falling in love in the book. But the book was useless. I didn't care about any of the characters. The main character was getting on my nerves. Didn't care about the love. I just think she was stupid. And next book on my list is Nevernight, and I did read this year. I had to like check like 8 times because this year it's been so long. I feel like everything that's happened this year could have happened over the course of like 5 years. So yeah, I read Nevernight and I didn't enjoy it. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I was really upset because I wanted to like it, but thought that it was really boring. The footnotes were useless. As an author, why do you need footnotes in your books? The girl, you should be able to pick up on what you're saying based off your writing. It felt too hard to be like flowery and beautiful when it just like, dude, chill out and just write what you gotta say. It wasn't enough to hook me personally. It just wasn't interesting to me, which sucks because it's a really popular book, but I just didn't care about it. Next book on this list is The Infernal Devices. Now, I did give these books like 3 stars, so most of these books on this list are 2 stars, but I did give The Infernal Devices 3 stars. This didn't live up to the hype for me. The series weren't bad per se, these books just kind of disappointed me because I did not like Tessa as the main character. I thought that she was useless. I thought that she was boring, and her only personality trait was the fact that she liked to read books, which is like, okay, so the rest of us, like, what makes you special here? Will and Jim were the real stars of the show. Tessa was just not a good main character. I did not care about her. Like, every time she opened her mouth, I was like, bitch, shut up. Like, every time. I just did not like Tessa. I don't think that she's a good character. I don't care about her. And I don't think that there's anything that makes her special, which I don't think that there needs to be anything that makes you special. But when you had 2 guys fighting over you, I would have to assume that there was something that makes you special. And there's nothing about Tessa that makes her special. Now, Miss Cordelia, yeah, even Emma, even freaking Clary. I don't care about Claire, but even Clary, there's nothing special there either. But I just did not care about Tessa. And coming from Cassandra Clare, like, I always eat up her plot lines. Like, that is the lowest book on my Shadowhunter Chronicles. Like, that is like the lowest book on my Shadowhunter Chronicles, because I just did not like the Infernal Devices. And I also think it was because everyone else was hyping it up. Like, this was Cassandra Clare's best book, like her best trilogy, her best work. Like, oh my gosh, like, this is it, guys. And I read it. And it wasn't giving what you guys said it was supposed to give. It was giving me boring. It was giving me useless. It was giving me, where's the plot line here? And the next book I have on this list is House of Salt and Sorrows. I hated this book. I just felt like it was really boring. It was supposed to be, and maybe it was because I am not familiar with 12 Dancing Sisters, so I just didn't know what, I'm just not familiar with it, so maybe that could be the thing. But no, the plot was so predictable. And there was this whole Greek mythology thing going on, which didn't make sense because the book was giving very like island summary vibes, and the sisters. The House of Salt and Sorrows is basically just about the sisters, and they're all dying off one by one. And the sister has to figure out who it is before, you know, too many sisters are dead, and it's like 12 sisters. But also, it wasn't like, it was creepy in the beginning. Do little stuff like, oh, footsteps turning into the room and things like that. The plot twist was so predictable. I guessed it within like the first few chapters. They kept hinting at it in the book, so when you got to the end, you were supposed to be like, oh, this is so like, oh my gosh. But it really wasn't subtle at all. Like, they kept hinting at it, and I just thought it was predictable. It was boring, not a good standalone, and a waste. I do want to give a warning before talking about this book. It is a Harry Potter book, so you don't want to listen to this part. I'll leave a timestamp down below to a point where you can skip it. But I'm going to talk about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I read all the Harry Potter books for the first time in November, and I had a good time reading them. I read The Cursed Child because I know a lot of people said not to, but I love the characters so much. I wanted to get more of them when they older. When I tell you that The Cursed Child was literally based off the movies and not the books, like, I watched all the movies and read all the books. There's a distinct difference between the book characters and the movie characters. This is supposed to be a play, so you can tell that the people who wrote this only watched the movies, because the way that they respond to things, Harry and Cursed Child acted the way that movie Harry would act, or like the things that Ron would say. Like, Ron's whole personality was based off of movie Ron, because Ron was actually really smart, and he was really helpful in the books, and he really helped him figure out a lot of things, and he was the one who informed him on a lot of things, because Harry's never been in the wizard world and Hermione hasn't either. Hermione just read these things, but Ron grew up there, so he knew. And it was one of my biggest issues with the movies is that they took out that in Ron's character. I'm a Ron girl. Hello. Ron and Neville. Draco too. Why in the books they just made Ron out to be like a Fred and George? Instead of like, he was like the fun dad or the fun uncle, and then he was all like, oh, you get your smarts from your mom. But Ron in the book was pretty smart too. He was just also funny. Like, he made prefects. Like, him and Hermione were prefects in the books. And Cursed Child, suddenly he's just like, oh, I'm just fun. Like, I'm just a fun person. Like, you get your smarts from your mom. Like, okay, whatever. Harry didn't say brilliant one time. That's an issue. Also, the plot line was stupid. It was stupid. Harry was a terrible dad. He was a terrible father. I do not know why they made Harry like this. Like, he literally told his child that he basically wished he wasn't his child. Harry would never do that. As someone who grew up without his parents, Harry would have never reacted like that. So I do not understand why. I don't know why J.K. Rowling signed off on this. Because she doesn't have any brain cells. That's why. She doesn't have any, it's nothing up here. It's empty. Because why would you sign off on this? Like, it's like, she didn't even read it. She just flipped through it and said, sounds good. Like, publish that. Because nothing made sense in this book. There was no George kids. George married a freaking black woman. There are black Weasleys, and none of the Weasley cousins were in the book. Teddy Tonks wasn't in this book. Why? Literally all you got was Hermione and Ron's kids and Harry kids. Like, okay. There's like 80 billion characters in like that world. Like, that alone will be a good idea for a book. Not that J.K. Rowling needs to write it or anything. Like, I'm fine with the fan fiction, trust me. The fact that like they had a whole bunch of ideas they could have done with this, and then they chose the one that they did. I've talked too much about it already. Next book on this list is Party of Two. This one is by Jasmine Guillory. This year I discovered that I do not like Jasmine Guillory as an author. When I first started off on booktube, I loved The Wedding Date. I did not like Party of Two. At first it was fun. I was like, okay, this is like a 3-star book. I already read this with Aza. And so, politician book, and I was like, I think that those would be really interesting. Like, that sounds like it'll be fun. So it's about a guy who's a politician, and this main character, she's a lawyer. She ends up meeting him, and they end up like starting up a relationship. The relationship started too fast in the book, which is like fine. I don't really mind it. I tend to get bored really easily when relationships start too soon in the book. But it was repetitive. Like, he would come over to her house, they would hang out, they would have like a little argument, whatever. Then there was a scene where they went on vacation and they seen this couple propose, and she like looks at him and be like, you better never propose to me like that. And I was like, they kind of started this argument. Also, this is the book where I realized, I mean, I've always realized it, but this is the book where I realized that romance books tend to have this part, like almost the end of their books, where it's like a scene where they don't communicate very well. And I just think that that part is annoying because it could be avoided. Like, I don't think that every romance book needs it, but I get that authors write it because it just helps the plot go along, and it's just kind of something that's like instilled in romance books now. I think it would be really weird for an author to go against the norm and not write that. But it's kind of like what brings the character back together and realize that they love each other. So I understand, but I think that it doesn't need to be there. And I feel like the argument that they have for this book was really stupid, and I hated it. I have The Guest List, which is a thriller, and I personally just didn't like it. It follows different characters all on this wedding day, and they're on this island, and I think it's like Scotland or something. They're on this island in Scotland for the main character to get married, and I thought that this book was going to be people turning up dead, but it really was just one person dies and you're trying to figure out who killed them, which is like, okay. And I didn't even care about the character who died, so I didn't care about any of the characters. I felt like the thriller was way too long. Once I realized that people weren't turning up dead, I got bored. I was listening to this at work. And usually, first of all, I hate DNFing things. I had like a whole mental breakdown this month because I DNF'd like 3 things and I never DNF anything. And usually when I'm at work, if I start something, I'm gonna finish the audiobook because I don't have time. So I sat there and I listened to the entire audiobook, and I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't care about the guy she was getting married to. There was a huge scene that triggered me in the book before I started reading it, and I usually don't get triggered that often, or at all basically. But there's a huge scene that triggered me in this book, and that's why I didn't continue the book, because I started it in February and didn't read it until like October or July or something like that. That also pushed me back, and it was like useless. The drama in this book was good, but it has to feel natural. It has to feel like the author like isn't just throwing this in there so we can gas. Like, and it also has to be like, get a natural gas from me, like build up in things or hinting at things, or like not even hinting, like little subtle things, and then you read it and you're like, you know, not just throwing it in there so I can go every 5 minutes, because I'm not going to, is Sicko. And this is a romance book that I read in December. It is by Emilio Jones. It's a dark romance book. I love dark romance, but this one was a bit too much for me. It was about this girl who was adopted. She was left on the doorstep of this family and this boy who wanted her brother, but he ends up getting a sister. And something happens where like he gets into this fight and he just runs away and never comes back home. And they're very close, by the way. She goes to college a few years later. He ends up coming back into her life, but he's in a motorcycle gang. Going into this book, I didn't know what the plot line was, because I don't really like knowing what a plot of the book is before going into the book, especially after Crescent City, because Crescent City description literally like spoils the book for you. So after that I was like, oh, I'm not reading descriptions. So I read another book by this author before. I pretty much liked it, and everyone was hyping this book up. Everyone in like who reads dark romance was hyping this book up, and I did not love it. And this book had trigger warning when I went into it. And first of all, when you read dark romance, that's already like, when you read dark romances, they don't really give trigger warnings, because dark romance, like, you already know it's going to be some dark shit going on in it. So when I read that it was a dark, like, when I read the trigger, I was like, oh, this book is going to be messed up. The book was messed up, and not in a cute way. It made me so uncomfortable, because he was literally like their brother and sister, like, not even on some like stepbrothers type of stuff. Like, they're not even on some like, oh, she just got adopted at this age. Like, they literally grew up together. Like, they think of each other as siblings. Like, they literally grew up together. And there is this one scene particularly, and I should have DNF'd it, but it was only 200 pages, and I don't like DNFing things. Like, I've already started it. I might as well finish it. Might as well get that book added to my Goodreads go. There's a scene where he's talking to the dad, and he basically tells the dad that he's gonna like do her. And then there's another scene where this girl is like, when you and two finally do it, like, it's just gonna be crazy because there's so much pent up, like, angst. They're siblings, girl. Let's get a grip, please. So disgusting. The next book on this list is Half-Blood, and this is by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this was literally a ripoff of The Vampire Academy. I read this book for a video where I read paranormal books that are carbon copy of other paranormal books. So I read Crave, and I read this one. I read another book, but I can't remember what it was. Whatever. This was a literal carbon copy of The Vampire Diaries. It literally is about this girl who is a half-blood, half-human, half-demigod. Well, basically a demigod. Huh? Because demigods are already half. What? I just confused myself. Well, basically, in this book, she is half human, half whatever, god, demigod, I don't care. And she isn't like the others, like fully. So she is supposed to fight so she can look over them, and her mama and her run away, and she ends up coming back. And it's literally a carbon copy of Vampire Academy. And I expected more from Jennifer L. Armentrout. Like, I expected more from her. Like, this was a literal carbon copy of the book. Like, I don't understand how she didn't get sued for it, because the characters were the exact same. The Vampire Academy, Rose has this best friend, this guy best friend, in Half-Blood, exactly that. She deserved to be sued. This book on this is The Shadows Between Us. I've talked about this book millions of times. This book is basically about this girl who decides that she is going to marry the king and kill him to take over his throne. She just was weak. She's supposed to be this badass character, but she just seemed like a copy of Jude Duarte from The Cruel Prince. She was not a baddie at all. It was a lot of showing, not telling. She's supposed to be like this whole, like, I just didn't like her. Didn't like the book. Didn't care. The cover was so beautiful, and it sucks that I didn't care about it. And the next book is Ricochet, which is the second book in the Addicted to You series. First of all, I really like the Addicted to You series. Like, thinking about it, I keep giving the books like 3 stars, but that's just because I don't like reading books where the characters are already together, and these books basically follow the characters already being together. Like, I haven't finished The Sky because the characters are together already in that book, and like, my favorite thing about the book is the chase. Basically, the characters getting together, and at the end they get together. So in Addicted to You, which is the first book in the series, they got together 20% in, but I kept reading because I really love the side characters, and I really love the found family trope that they have, and the characters are wild, and I really love the characters. I really enjoy them. So that book was like a 3-star. I read Ricochet. Ricochet was literally a novella. First of all, a 200-page novella. I don't know what kind of novella that is, but whatever. In the entire book, something happens in the first book where the main character is not in the second book. So the entire book is just her moping around and being sad that he isn't there. And literally just that. Like, literally just that. And then, like, it was important, though, because some other stuff happens in the book that takes place in the following series, so like you can't really, it's not even really a novella, like they just call it novella. Addicted to You series are really long, so the Addicted to You book is like really long anyways, so I can see why to them it would be a novella, but it's like 500 pages, like that's not a novella. There's Addicted for Now, which is the book after Ricochet, and I also gave this book 2 stars. I hated it, and I don't like Lily Calloway, and I'm probably the only person that can say it. I forgot to tell you guys what this book series is about. So basically it is about this girl named Lily Calloway, and her family's really rich. They have like their own company. It's like a soda company, and then there is Lauren, aka Lo, I forgot his last name, and his family owns like a baby company, not a baby, but baby product company. And so they end up going to Penn State, so this takes place in college, and they both have addictions. She's addicted to sex and he's addicted to alcohol. I really like that she was addicted to sex because it was literally an addiction. There's this one scene where if she didn't get it, she was like literally shaking, like it was a literal addiction. Like it wasn't just like, oh, I like to have sex, like it literally was an addiction. So they're fake dating in this book, and fake dating in the first book, which I enjoyed the first book. They're fake dating in the first book, and then they end up getting together like 20% in, and it's just them both dealing with their addiction and all that. And so the second book takes place, and when something happens to the main male character, he's not dead or anything, something happens to him and he has to go away, and so it's just her being sad that he's gone and depressed and so lonely. And she does have addiction, so I don't want to downplay that. So it is like she can't feed into her addiction because he's not there, but she's learning how to control it and learning like what it's more about, because it's not normal. Not saying that it's not normal to be addicted to sex, but don't have like therapists for it, and then the therapists that you do have are just really creepy and they just want to have sex with you, basically take advantage of you. Addicted for Now just follows, I forgot the plot line for this book because everything meshes together in these books, but I do not like Lily Calloway as a character. She is the worst character to read from. I think that she is, sorry, I think she's dumb. They go to Penn State and she is struggling to stay in Penn State, and you can tell that her parents bought her way into that college because there's no damn way she would have made it based off her grades in high school. There's literally a point, and I think it was like Addicted for Now, where they're all going to Cancun or something for a vacation, and she literally gets their bag stolen because she thought that this guy was the guy who like takes your bags in the hotel. So now they done lost their passports and all this stuff because of her. This man just got free money because of her. Like he didn't even rob her. He didn't have to put a gun in her head. She literally just gave him the stuff because she thought he was a bellhop. And then in the second book, she has to go from Penn State to another Ivy League college, and she was already failing Penn State, so you expect me to believe that she can go from one Ivy League college to another? No, I don't believe that, actually. And guess what? She was still failing at the other Ivy League college. My favorite Calloway sister is everyone but her, except their older sister. What was her name? Something that's a flower. But there's Lily, Rose, and Daisy. Lily is the one who's addicted to sex. Rose is the one who's really smart, and I love her relationship with her guy Connor. Like, I love that. And I'm so sad that Kiss the Sky was hard because I didn't see their relationship forming. Like, the book starts off with they already have a relationship, and they're also having this reality TV show, and like, oh yeah, that's fun. I want to read about the relationship. I want to read about them getting together. Like, it was so fun. And Addicted for Now, like watching, no, Ricochet, when they were like arguing with each other because they're both really smart, and I really like that trope of like rivals to lovers, but the rivals to lovers, like academic rivals to lovers. I really love that trope. And it also gave me Dan and Blair vibes, because if you guys don't know, like obviously you guys can tell I am obsessed with Gossip Girl. I have been since high school, and Dan and Blair are my endgame. Daisy and Wright give like age gap excellence, so I love that. And she's legal in her book when she gets together with him. I mean, they're so funny as like a group of friends, and I really adore them together. It's just the books were boring. Like, I don't want to read a book about characters who are already together. I wish the authors would have planned it out better. And I don't think I want to plan on reading the rest of the books. Mika and Jocelyn both are reading them, or slash have read them. All 3-star books to me. Like, they're not something to be obsessed with. They are addictive, I can't lie. But once I got out of reading those books, I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm sorry. Verity, and I did a lot of my videos earlier this year. I really don't know why, but I'm not gonna put them back. I didn't even private them. I unlisted them. So all you have to do is just go through my playlist, and then you'll find my videos. If you go to my book reviews, Verity will be in there, and Verity is basically this Colleen Hoover book. I've never really read a Colleen Hoover book, and I used to be very judgmental towards her because of all like rant reviews I've seen of her, but I haven't read a book of hers, so I really can't be judgmental like if I haven't read the books. I'm like, okay, yeah, everyone else says it's bad, but I haven't read it for myself. So I do want to read a Colleen Hoover book and give it a try because the romance girlies do like her. But I read Verity, and this book was about this girl who's an author, and one day she is propositioned to write for this other author who was put in a wheelchair. She has brain damage, she can't talk, she can't speak, literally none of that. So she is set to write this book for her, and when she goes to write for her, she ends up discovering that the author wrote some pretty sick things about like her kids and like what she did to them and all this stuff. And it's kind of like, it reminds me of a Lifetime movie. Literally that. It reminds me of a Lifetime movie. I didn't mind the ending because I really like endings where you don't know what's the truth and what's not the truth, or like just, I just really like the ending. It's like the last chapter, but the book within itself I did not care for. I thought the book was fun to read, but at the same time I hated the main character, I hated the husband, and yeah, I just thought it was like wild. That is all for my worst books of 2020. Let me know your worst books, because personally I feel like there's no problem with talking about things you don't enjoy, and I think that is really healthy, to be honest. It doesn't even have to be the worst book. Just comment a book that you thought you were gonna love but you didn't, like that was on your anticipated reads list and you just didn't enjoy. And if you don't want to comment anything, if you want to comment emoji instead, leave a black heart emoji. And thank you for watching this video. I'll see you guys next time.